Hey guys, DJ Freak Gaming here, and I am so excited to bring you The Last of Us 2 review. This game was awful, and I loved every minute of it. But this review is not what you think, so bear with me. I'm going to get raw and real in this review, but I will do my best to prevent spoilers. Some details will need to be said, but I will be very, very mindful of not ruining anybody's experience if you haven't made it through the game yet or you haven't started playing it. The Last of Us 2 is no doubt one of the most anticipated AAA titles and sequels for the PlayStation 4. It's no surprise that when this game decided to take on bold new directions, risky storylines, and heavy minority representation, it was going to be divisive, and it is. It's gory, it's dark, it's depressing, and that's why it's so damned awful. But it's also intriguing with its deep narrative juxtapositions and its morally bankrupt temperament. So, in the same context, I just couldn't get enough, and it was an absolute dichotomy. So, here's a look into The Last of Us 2 and what I rated it as and where I got my ratings from. Now, overall, I gave The Last of Us 2 a 4.95 out of 5. Yeah, it's high. Yes, I was a fan. Now, if you were not a fan of the game, I still encourage you to watch and comment because I would love to know where we have differences of opinions, and I would like to hear from you on the things that maybe I got wrong about this review. If you are a fan, I would love to know where our opinions are similar and where they may be different. If you're somebody that hasn't finished the game yet or hasn't started, you definitely want to watch this review because you want to be sure this is the kind of game that you want to invest 30 plus hours into playing. Just to put this into context so you can understand the kinds of games that I like, the closest game that I've scored to this was Horizon Zero Dawn, which received a 4.89. There are some games that I've played that I haven't done a formal review of, which was The Witcher 3 and Heavy Rain, and I would put those games up there in the category with The Last of Us 2 for sure. Now, you'll notice a pinned link in the comment section below. If you wish to read the larger, more expansive review, you could do that on my website, and the link will be posted there. So the story is the very first attribute that I use when I'm rating a game. And this story picks up exactly where you left off last, covering moments over the last 5 years of Ellie's life. This game will take you on an emotional journey all about lies, forgiveness, anger, betrayal, and vengeance. When unexpected deaths occur, this game and your emotions are going to be kicked into high gear and you won't get a lot of reprieve. So just be prepared for that. You're going to be forced to make decisions that you don't want to. You will be subjected to dark, hollow, depressing moments, but each of them will have a paradox. There will be an equally saccharine, soft, and loving scene that helps balance that out. The game was polarizing in every sense. As far as the storyline goes, I like to compare it to one of my favorite WLW films called Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It was a wonderful love story, but it didn't have a happy ending. And I don't expect a lot of happy endings in the apocalypse. Sometimes characters that you love have to die, and sometimes things don't turn out the way you want them to. Sadness doesn't equate to bad writing. It equates to a specific emotion that's necessary for the journey. Some of you will disagree, and that's completely okay, but I didn't feel like the writing was bad, and I thought that not having a happy ending was appropriate. But again, completely understand if you disagree, and I would love to hear more about that in the comments below. But I gave the story a 4.9 out of 5. I've never read a perfect story, and I can't imagine that the perfect script exists. Characters are the next attribute that I use when reviewing a game, and this game has exactly what you would expect in a zombie apocalypse world. Factions of humans living at war with one another on top of a war that they're raging against the infected. There's more enemies, harder enemies, and larger enemies. Now, there's no heroes or villains, and no good or bad actions. Nothing is immune to judgment in this game, and that's what I really like. The parallels of the characters and their development are deep, and it's my favorite part of the writing in this game. Their lives, their fears, their loves, their passions just all start blurring together, just like the lines of good and evil. And in the end, their goals are similar, and when vengeance consumes them, far too many fates begin to get intertwined in this twisted story about revenge. I'm really in love with these characters, and it made the journey so much more rewarding for me. The acting was stellar. Ashley Johnson as Ellie Williams deserves every award possible. Shannon Woodward as Dina is my new favorite thing. I love their chemistry, and it really brought the game to life for me. Now, there's two quotes in the game that gave me goosebumps. I'm not going to give too much away for those of you who haven't seen it. If you have played it and you've gotten to these points, please let me know how you feel about them. My most favorite moment in the game was the "I don't want to lose you" embrace. That was such a dichotomy of scene. I mean, that right there was completely stellar. My second favorite moment of the game was the "You are my people." I just love these characters, and I have to give them a 5 out of 5. Gameplay is the next attribute that I use, and I believe the mechanics were majorly improved on this installment. The combat was smooth, the movements were fluid, the animations were sick. I completed a hardcore stealth run, and I'm almost done with an aggressive combat run, and it's so satisfying both ways. Aerial combat, explosives, human shields, and melee weapons are the highlight of this combat system. Oh my God, it's fantastic. There are times when the game felt a bit rehearsed just because there's so much quality in the gameplay and the controls and the mechanics. But that's a sign that they did a really good job on this. Now, the camera angles were tough, even if you go in and open up the field of view, but that was by design. They wanted to trigger tension and add difficulty, and it worked. There were so many times in this game that I felt like it was unfun, it was frustrating, and it was hard as hell. But it was also addictive, and it felt like an accomplishment when I was finally able to get through it. The boss fights, the human AI, and the NPC AI are all drastically scaled up and improved, and I thought they were really, really impressive. What I loved most is the blend of open world exploration combined with linear gameplay. I felt like it was a really perfect balance, and the length of the game felt right at around 30 hours, and the difficulty settings scaled really well, and I enjoyed that aspect. I feel like Naughty Dog put a lot of thought into that. And one of my favorite things was all these little hidden gems that you would only unlock by additional exploration. If you had done the linear gameplay without exploring, you would have missed all these extra bits and pieces of character development and relationship development. So I give the gameplay of The Last of Us 2 a 4.85 out of 5 because I thought it was spectacular. Graphics, this game was stunning. Even people who disliked the game enjoyed the graphics. The world, the weather elements, the weapons, the clothing. It was so detailed and crisp and rich. And it's in these details that this game separates itself from others. The rope mechanics were completely insane. You bleed through bandages. If you zoom in on your character in a mirror, they will squint and look at themselves. There's always dirt under the fingernails. The hair moves realistically. Ballistics, even sounds that objects make. And I listen to the sound and move the character, and it changes the sound and the echo from the sound. And there's just so much detail in it. And I thought it was technical. I thought it was precise. This game is on par with games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Red Dead Redemption 2, and God of War when you look at the details and the world design. That was easy for me to give it a 5 out of 5. Performance is the last attribute that I use when I'm rating a game. There's no such thing as perfection in coding. At least I haven't found it yet. I feel like I will always find a flaw in the performance and in the story of a game. But there weren't a lot of issues, weren't a lot of glitches. I found a few things, nothing super, super major. I give it a 4.8 out of 5. I only really found one thing that kind of hung me up for a bit, but it wasn't super major. I do have a couple of closing comments that I do want to make simply because this is such a divisive game and such a polarizing game. The Last of Us 2 is truly a game that I believe is most likely going to be very well received or very well hated. I haven't come across a lot of people who are kind of in the middle that said, yeah, it's good, but it's meh. It's out there, but I feel like it's not as much. It's very much a love it or hate it kind of thing. The representation in the game is a positive to a lot of minority groups out there. But if you are an individual and you are a true believer of the get woke, go broke theory, you probably won't enjoy this game. In fact, you maybe didn't enjoy this game. And I would like to hear about that in the comments below. If you're somebody who hasn't played it yet, and you don't like the forcing of diversity, you may not enjoy this game. There are strong female lead characters. There's a gay relationship that's front and center. There's a trans character. You have a Jewish character. You have a Mexican and Asian. It has a very masculine, dominant woman who doesn't fit a typical body archetype that you generally tend to see with women in gaming. And her boyfriend has been called all kinds of terms online. So if these things sound like things that may not be your cup of tea, you may want to consider steering clear of this game. I personally, I don't care about those things. They don't bother me. I don't mind it. But if these attributes could bother you, they may prevent you from enjoying parts, if not all, of the game. That's completely okay. I'm not here to judge that. I'm not here to judge you. I'm happy to have a very polite and adult conversation about that, no problem. But I do want to make sure that people know what some of the things are that make this game and this story so divisive without digging into any other spoilers or storyline things that come up. For those of you who are in a minority group who is represented in this game, the breadth of this representation might really move you. It might want to be a game that you decide to pick up and play simply for these reasons alone. Typically, I'm not a big fan of survival games. I'm usually not that patient, I'll be honest with you. Horror games, not my cup of tea. Although I wouldn't classify this nearly as intense as other horror games that I've played and watched. I can't stand zombies. Bruh, I don't like them. I don't do them. They're ugly. They're creepy. I have no interest in them. They terrified me. The stalkers terrified me. That rat king, no. But I can't wait to do it again. And that's what this game is. It's freaking awful, and I loved it. It terrified me. It moved me. It depressed me. It gave me so much tension, but man, it's so enjoyable. And it has all these ebbs and flows that just bring you out of that negative charge and into a positive charge. Granted, you can handle some of the different things that I talked about in this review. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you appreciate this and that it may have helped you in some way. Whatever your thoughts are, whether you played it or you didn't, or you love it or you hate it, definitely comment below. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate you watching. And again, if you'd like to check out the larger, more expansive review, just check out the pinned link in the comment section below, and it will go right to my blog. Thanks, Freaklings. I'm sure I'll see you soon.